Meeting, but we were going to start off with the Public Works. If Marlon Coleman is on the line to preside over the Public Works meeting tonight, to allow our visitors an opportunity to speak.
Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
We'll now call to order the Public Works meeting for today. Item number 1.
Consider approval of Public Works Committee minutes of May 18, 2020.
We should have had an opportunity to all read the minutes. Do you have any questions or motion to accept?
Boydston makes the motion to approve.
Counselor Stout, second.
We have a motion and a second for the minutes. Any other further discussion? Roll call.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 2.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of ordinance number 4094A to close the right-of-way shown as Southeast Street, south of East Madison Street, lying between Block 303 and 304, Muskogee Original Town Site, more particularly described in the ordinance, providing for severability and setting an effective date, or take other necessary action.
We will now open the public hearing. Ms. Callahan.
Yes, thank you, Chair, committee members. This is a request from Amy Kaiser to close adjacent property to her that's 80 feet wide. It is platted as Southeast Street, and it is south of Madison. It is between Madison and the Fairgrounds property. Ms. Kaiser is requesting to close this property to then go and vacate the property district court, and then that way the adjacent property owners would then be able to expand their existing properties. It's never been platted, it's not been used as a street, and this way it would close and vacate it and would allow them to expand their properties. Subdivision review and planning commission recommend approval, and the applicant is there if there's any questions of the applicant. Be happy to answer the questions.
Ms. Callahan, has anyone signed up to speak to this item?
This is Counselor Stout. I move for approval.
We're still in the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was not aware of anybody signed up to speak.
We will now close the public hearing. Now we have questions or comments from council committee.
This is Counselor Stout. I move for approval.
Councilman McGee.
Counselor Morgan. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item passes. Number 3.
Consider approval of the preliminary plat of Lee Brick Addition consisting of 3 lots on 2.64 acres located on West Shawnee and North 24th Street, or take other necessary action.
Ms. Callahan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Committee members, this is a request from the owners, Land Real Estate Corporation. Ernie Gilder is the president. They've submitted this preliminary plat in order to get the property platted that they could sell the parcel or all 3 of the parcels on the 2.64 acres. It is located on the northeast corner of 24th Street and West Shawnee. One of the existing buildings in the subdivision is addressed as 2320 West Shawnee, and the others are vacant lots that they hope to sell for future development. The subdivision is zoned correctly for the sale and for platting, and they will be extending this sewer when new development happens, if it does happen. Subdivision Review and Planning Commission recommended approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Callahan from the committee? If not, we will entertain a motion.
Boydston moves to approve. Morgan
This is
second.
Chairman Coleman at second. Any other discussion from the council? Roll call.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
And the item passes. That concludes the Public Works agenda, but we have four citizens that have signed up to speak. First, we have Reverend Roger Cutler. I'm going to ask that you state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, may I interject? This Councilman Ivory Van.
Yes.
What I was going to ask was that each one of these speakers come up here so we don't have to rush them. Can they have an extra 5 minutes for each one of them? And we also have a speaker that was supposed that I think you personally is supposed to sign up that is not up here on the list. And we'd like to suspend the rules so we can give Ms. Wilma Newton a chance to speak before we get started.
I'll entertain a motion to give each speaker an additional 2 minutes.
I second that motion.
Yep.
It's been moved in second. Roll call.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Okay, I would also like to
Yes.
make an additional, motion to suspend the rules to allow Ms. Wilma Newton 3 minutes to speak.
Do we have a second?
This is Counselor Stout. I second.
Here, you're going to give her 2 minutes.
It's been properly moved in second that we allow Ms. Newton 3 minutes to speak. Roll call.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can we do Ms. Newton just like we did the rest of them, give them an extra 2 minutes?
Do we have a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Morgan.
remove my motion for the 3 minutes, and I second Councilman Van's motion to allow Wilma Newton 5 minutes.
It's been properly moved in second. Roll call.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Thank you, Reverend Cutler. You have the floor. You have 5 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address.
Reverend Roger Cutler, 1602 Hayes Street. I'm here today on behalf of the NAACP. It's my joy to serve as president, and the citizens of this community that have come to voice our opinion and our concern as we stand with Councilor Ivory Van. And let me be clear, if it were Mayor Janie Boydston, Deputy Mayor Derek Reed, Councilor Marlon Coleman, Councilor Jamie Stout, Councilor Evelyn Hibbs, Councilor Alex Reynolds, Councilor Stephanie Morgan, or Councilor Tracy McGee, we would be standing here as well, because this is not a black or white issue. This is a moral issue. It's a right or wrong issue. When you have a city employee who has taken it upon himself to harass a city councilor for doing his job, his constituent contacted him about a problem they were having. He sought out a remedy and found out that there were problems. He brought it before this body. And because Mr. Hurd, I guess for lack of better terms, was thrown under the bus, he got upset. Because he was upset, he retaliated against this councilor. Now, you can hide it under the guise of a whistleblower. He didn't whistleblow. He knew exactly what he was doing because Mr. Van did not commit a crime. His goal was to unseat Counselor Ivory Van. And so we believe, while it was nothing criminal, according to the district attorney, it was certainly unethical. And if you allow this type of behavior to continue, what will that do when a citizen complains? When a citizen says that they don't like what is done, does that give them the right to attack a citizen? There's a lot of things going on in our nation today. And I like what the police chief in Minnesota said, Minneapolis said. He said that the 3 police officers that stood by and watched that officer put his knee on his neck, they are complicit. City of Muskogee, if you sit by and allow this man to do this and not at least reprimand him, you are complicit as well. And citizens are tired of this type of behavior. One of the reasons that we're upset is because these were African American homes. They're in low-income areas, they have good homes, and they were disgruntled with the work that was done. And because they brought their concerns forward, our city councilor is harassed. That's ludicrous. And we're asking that he be reprimanded. I do want to thank, however, the city manager. He did sit down. He did meet with me. We did have good discussion, as we normally do. He's a friend, and I thank him for meeting with me. But I want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. None of our counselors deserve that type of behavior, especially from its own self. Something's wrong with that. In my house, Mama would have whooped your behind. I was nice right there. I meant to say something else.
Yes, stay safe, Reverend.
And so something needs to happen. I understand these are issues that the city manager has to deal with because they are employment issues, but we the citizens have a right to voice our opinion, and that's what we're doing here. He had a right to exercise his First Amendment rights. Well, darn it, we have the right to exercise ours. And we're here today to do just that. And so we're asking this body to look at that, to consider that. We also want you to consider some type of policy that gives interaction between city employees and city councilors. There's nothing on the road, nothing on the books. There ought to be something. And then we want to look at these African American homes that were not done right. I want to thank the city manager for working with us to make sure that that takes place. And I want to thank you all for hearing me tonight. I hope you hear our concerns, because our nation is tired and our city is tired.
Thank you, Reverend Cudlow. The next person we have signed up to speak is Ms. Carnita Cooper. I'm going to ask that you state your name and an address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Carnita Cooper. My address is 325 West Broadway, number 501, Muskogee, Oklahoma. I live in the historic Manhattan building that I'm very proud of, and that's why I love this city. I stand before you today to let you know that I believe in Ivory Van. I have known him since childhood when we attended Mount Zion Baptist Church together. We also attended school together. And it was such a joy. I chose to go to college. He chose to do Votech, and he let me know when he got his first journeyman license. He's a highly skilled individual, highly intelligent, and he has always been honest, trustworthy, and respectful, and also a man of God. He should never be mocked, and he's a man that should never be disrespected. The behavior of Dan Hurd, who sent blank envelopes to in this season of COVID-19, it was hideous. It's just hideous and disrespectful and outright rude. And I don't believe any council person should be treated that way. I am asking that this council will see it in their hearts to stand for Van and do the right thing not the wrong. Do the right thing that has been, get rid of the wrong thing that has been inflicted on this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Cooper. The next speaker we have signed up is Reverend Andre Jones. I'm going to ask that you give us your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Yes, Reverend A.H. Jones. Address is 101 South Country Club Road, Muskogee, Oklahoma. To the mayor and to the councilmen, I want to thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I am here tonight because of the article in which I read in the Muskogee Phoenix concerning Mr. Avery Vann. I don't stand as the NAACP. I stand as All Lives Matter. As we look at this situation, we feel that Dan Hurd has overstepped his boundaries in sending what is said to be empty envelopes to Mr. Vann's fiancée. One may pretend that Mr. Vann's address was trying to be verified, but the question is why now, after Mr. Vann stands every week stating his address over and over again? We all know that these envelopes came only after Mr. Vann addressed the complaints of citizens in regard to the renovation of the homes that received the money for repairs. It's a known fact also that within our community there is some personal issues between Mr. Vann and the contractor. The purpose behind these envelopes was hoping to attain a way to remove Mr. Vann of his council role or to tarnish his reputation. It's a shame that these envelopes was taken so lightly, knowing that only a few years ago envelopes was laced with Amtrak. And with this Corona-19 going around, who was to say that the virus was not inside the envelope? Our concerns is to not only protect Mr. Vann, but to protect all of our councilmen. It's also a fact that many, if not all of the council was aware of what took place and just ignored it because it was Mr. Vann. Through my personal observation of the council meeting that has been aired over the television, anything Mr. Vann seems to present is shut down. Even from the request a few weeks ago that a law enforcement agent be placed in the building during the council meeting to protect all of our councilmen was shut down. But nevertheless, as I entered the doors tonight, I was greeted by an officer without a vote even being in place. We believe that if Mr. Hurd is not dealt with, then those underneath him will feel that they can treat people under them any kind of way, and that they would not have the protection of Mr. Hurd, the city manager, or not even the council. Silence is an agreement. It's an agreement that something has been done and you just going along with it. Here is our recommendation. We recommend the community is asking that Mr. Hurd be reprimanded for his unethical conduct. We're asking that wording be placed in the charter, the bylaws, addressing not only how citizens are treated by the council, but how the councils are treated by the citizens. You would not think that this have to be a request that common sense should step in, but evidently it's not when a department head seems to harass and have a man's fiancé living in a life of fear. We need to understand the time frame within these letters that Mr. Vann's truck was broken in. The third thing, we believe that Mr. Vann is due an open apology. The fourth thing, we're asking that the monies will be looked into, the monies pertaining the renovation of these homes. And if the money is funny, if it's not accountable, if it don't equal the money, the amount of money for the work that was put into the labor of the house, then Mr. Hurd need to go. I stand tonight speaking for a community, one that is tired of being mistreated, one is tired of being overlooked, one that is tired of not being heard. There's a group of protests right outside your building tonight. Protests come only after people are suppressed, only after their emotions have stirred up. We don't need what the other cities are having around its nation. So we need to do the right thing now before the wrong thing escalate. Do the right thing, council.
Thank you, Mr. Reverend Jones, Pastor Jones. The next speaker is Ms. Betty Falcon McConnell. We're going to ask that you give us your name and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Betty Balker McConnell. I live at 1620 Lenapaw, Muskogee, Oklahoma. I will speak on several issues tonight, both involving the city council member and the city of Muskogee workers. 3 suspicious envelopes was mailed to Ivy Van's fiancé. Dan Hurd admits that he sent them. If Mr. Hurd have time to drive around town to see where somebody is staying, he is doing this on city time while he is working, and this is also called stalking. We vote for our city council officials, and we hold them to very high expectations. We also expect the same for our city workers, and as the citizens of Muskogee, we are not getting the professional conduct that we need from our city workers. Due to the coronavirus, we did not all want to come in with a lot of people inside, but as you can see, they're outside protesting. We are very unhappy with the way Councilman Ivy Van is being treated. It is also plain to see that Muskogee still have the good old boy system in place in Muskogee. We have a person in the White House who is sending messages that this kind of behavior is all right. So whoever is in charge of the workers, we are not happy with the way that Councilman Ivy Van is being treated. And yes, you can be voted out too. Before Ivy Van became a city councilor, Ivy Van would attend city council meetings to talk about different concerns of Muskogee. Ivy would show up so many times that y'all would laugh at him when he came. And then one of the issues that he brought up was about the parks and the bathroom, of what was needed in the parks. He also spoke on the poor job of the splash pad, where the concrete that was poured was cracking. And he would bring pictures and he would bring PowerPoints to let the council see what a poor job that the company did in Midland Valley Edition. So why is Dan Hurd in his feelings that if he's signing off and not on standard work, that it would be all right? Mr. Hurd should have never signed off on the work if it was not up to standard or code. But you get what we call the green-eyed envy, called jealousy, to get Ivy fired. How dare he, a black man, tell me what to do? How dare he, a black man, tell me how to do my job? And if it's wrong, in my opinion, I can see the reason. This is the only reason Mr. Hurd is trying to get rid of Ivy Van off the city council and stalking him to get him fired. Yes, the Muskogee politicians, we see you too. You might not be here tonight, but the only time that we see you is on election time at our churches. The only time that I see you might pull one of us to the side and give them a little coins to get us to vote for you. We're not having it. All this violence that's going on, it is because of things that people is not doing. You ignore it, and then when it gets this far as it have, then you think that people is crazy. What's wrong with them? I don't see nothing wrong. Well, we see it now. We're up here trying to nip it in the bud. We do not appreciate Mr. Hurd. Y'all been with Ivy before he got to be a city councilman. Y'all sit up and laugh behind his back. But now that he have a platform not to help black people, but all people in Muskogee, and then y'all don't appreciate nothing like that, something is wrong with you. You say you go to church, you say you're Christian, Catholic, or whatever your faith may be. You need to check yourself. Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you, Ms. McConnell. We'll now have Ms. Wilma Newton to speak to us tonight. Ms. Newton, if you will take the podium or wherever you are tonight, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. 5 minutes, I'm sorry. You have 5 minutes.
My name is Wilma Newton, 411 North 14th Street in the great city of Muskogee, and I come before the council tonight concerning Juneteenth. This will be our 13th year, and most of you all have been there before. You know how many people we serve. I talk with the guy that's ordering the meat, so I need to know, is it open? Because I don't want to pay for meat and not be able to feed.
Ms. Newton, in this process, we actually can't give back dialogue with you, but we will follow up on your question if you want to continue with your comments.
Okay. And also, I will be knocking on your doors. You know why. I'm coming asking for money and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. That will conclude the Public Works meeting. I believe now we're going to the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and all speakers. At this time, we'll call to order the Finance Committee meeting for this day. Item number 1, please.
Derek, we need to recognize
I'm sorry. Excuse me, let me back up. I guess I have misplaced got my agendas turned here. We want to recognize the employee of the month, first of all. Mayor Janie Boyson.
Okay, this is Mayor Boydston speaking, and we want to recognize tonight John Rowland, who is in the Utility Revenue Division. And John started working for the city on October 15, 2018, as a Utility Field Technician 1. Prior to working for the city, John was a delivery driver for a medical company and also worked as a supply technician at St. Francis. John was born and raised in Muskogee and attended Langston University for 2 years and studied business administration. He enjoys spending time with his children and watching his daughter play softball. John also likes to grill and cook out and go to the gym when he can. We congratulate on this award Mr. Rowland as Employee of the Month for June 2020. He's not here tonight, but we will make sure he gets the paperwork. And congratulations again, John. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mayor Borston. We are now going to tonight's Finance Committee meeting for June the 1st, 2020. Item number 1, please.
Consider approval of Finance Committee minutes of May 18, 2020.
Reviewing of the minutes, are there any corrections or additions to our minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Counselor Stout. I make the motion to approve.
Mayor Boydston seconds.
I have a motion and a second to approve our minutes for this week. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 1 passes. Item number 2, please.
Consider approval of claims for all city departments May 9, 2020 through May 22, 2020.
Do we have a report from the Purchasing Committee?
This is Counselor Stout, and the Purchasing Committee did meet this afternoon, and we move for approval.
Mayor Boydston seconds.
I have a motion and a second to approve our claims list. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 2 passes. Item number 3, please.
Hold a public hearing to discuss the City of Muskogee budget for fiscal year 2020-2021 and take other necessary action.
We have Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the audio working well?
We also don't have our computers up here going.
And Mr. Chairman, we
Very
cannot
good.
hear Mr. Miller.
All right, we were having some audio difficulties here. I think we are back up and running. Can you hear me now? Those of you who are on the meeting remotely.
Do we not have access to the computers?
I'll ask our IT staff. The computers at the desk are not currently functional where they can see the monitors. So while we're dealing with technical difficulty, just for a moment or two, I can address a couple of issues. Number one, this is one of the most important things we do every year. The council provides direction on where we want to head, and the budget is how we spend our money. So it reflects the priorities that the council has. We've done work to this point based off the input that we've had to this point. We've had the budget retreat about a week and a half ago. And since that time, we've had a very compressed budget time frame this year as compared to regular years, in part because of COVID-19, because of the unknowns surrounding the future financially and for public health regarding this coronavirus and COVID-19. So I want to give special thanks today to Chris Cummings and to Marcy Gillum and to Gene Kingston and also Marsha Wiseman, who stayed up last week, Thursday night, till about 10 o'clock so that we could finalize the packet and the numbers that you guys have in front of you. They stayed late. They worked long hours during this compressed time frame to give you guys the draft budget that we have before you tonight, knowing, of course, that it's for discussion and a budget hearing today. That being said, those of you who are on remotely, please try and, if you can, watch the video feed. You can see the slides. Those that are here in person will hopefully have on their monitors and the screen as well. As we look quickly at our budget, and as we do look at the budget, we want to, let me see, there we go. We want to realize that where we're at today is because, and the successes we've had today were because of the budget process that we put in place this time last year. We'll go through these relatively quickly. We've got a lot of major infrastructure accomplishments in the last year with 30-inch water line going all the way across town, Haskell Boulevard drainage project, a lot of water and sewer projects that you don't necessarily see day to day. You might see a lot of construction. There's $45 million worth of water and sewer projects started about a year or two ago that are going to be going on currently and into the next few years. We have the west side and junction area wastewater collection systems that have been done, port area lift stations that are completed, and another one is still ongoing. Wastewater treatment plant, a lot of work going on there, and really a lot more projects, more numerous than we can really probably go through with any kind of time. So I just want to give you this long list on your screens. There's economic development successes, there's street successes, there's tourism-related successes, there's facility successes as far as buildings, new buildings, expansion of our park system and quality of life, new vehicles for our public servants and public safety, and importantly, a new finance partner. We did an RFP in the last year. I'll talk about that a little later as we go through the budget, because that's had a significant impact on our budget this year about how we're able to deal with that. Real quickly.
Before we go any further.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, have we opened up the public hearing yet?
I'm sorry. I guess I don't believe I did.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we.
Okay. All right. I do apologize for that. At this point, we will open up a public hearing for the budget for 2020-2021 public hearing.
Thank you. And we. Thank you. And I feel comfortable that we haven't really gotten into the meat of the 2021 budget yet. So
we're going to have to start all over.
Yeah, no, we don't. We do not have to start all over, and I know you're grateful for that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be recognized.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the first slide, Mr. Miller?
The first, this one?
Right there.
Yes, sir.
See where it says Southwest Zone Streets?
Yes, sir.
It's been checked, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have they went back and done the repairs on those streets yet?
We do have probably a few punch list items left. I can go over those with you, certainly.
Okay, because like I say, when I came through one of the streets of Estelle yesterday, asphalt was still piled up. And they could have done quite a better job on cleaning the drain out. And also on that microsurfacing on Elgin, I've seen some spots in that needs to be went over by the contractor. So I'm just trying to I just want to make sure that these punch lists is done.
Well, very good. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tucker. We're having battery issues, so we're going to microphone number 3 here. I'm old enough to start thinking of Phil Donahue or something like that. All right. So back to our successes, some of the things we're proud of. This council helped to do an economic development agreement to bring in new residential development. It's our first major development in a long time. We instituted a new program that's been highly successful with the Police Athletic League. We're working on a project to bring in, replace almost half our water meters in the next year. Very important. We've talked about our expansion of our facilities, a new senior center well underway at the old fire station on West Okmulgee, Hatbox Hangar expansion project also well underway. We're very proud of those, especially in regards to the amount of grant funding we've been able to get to help make those happen, that we try to extend the tax dollars. Community events, we had our last, in the past year, our festival ballooning and the first Okie Jeep Jam. We hope to expand on all those and keep bringing more people to town. We bought 20 new police vehicles this fiscal year and a new fire truck, again, through a partnership grant that we're excited about. Other asset improvements, the animal shelter, grant funded from 2 different sources, very little city money, but a lot of city time and effort going into that. Again, stretching our tax dollars, a cemetery bell tower taking place with a lot of private donations, and improvements out at the fairgrounds for our fleet parking lot. And these are 3 of our quality of life parks expansions that I'm excited about. Civitan Park expansion, again, 2 separate grants paying for almost all of that project. Depot Green, City of Muskogee Foundation grant, very vital in making that happen. And the trail expansion that we've talked about that you see along Chicago and then moving along Shawnee is actually, looks like a sidewalk project, but it's also a trail project, extending our trail all the way from Hatbox. This will take it north almost all the way to Harris Road as part of keeping our city a great place to exercise and more recreational activities. So those are just a few of the things that we're excited about for this fiscal year. As we look at this year's budget and we look ahead, we think about a couple of things: the stabilization fund and the impact of COVID-19. And we always want to talk about our budget principles. Our budget principles is that we keep our expenses less than our revenue. We always estimate how much money we're going to have come in, and we plan on spending less than that. So that if there's money at the end of the year, every department head knows that if there's money at the end of the year, that goes into something called carryover. And so the council then budgets that money according to rules that the council has made. So every dollar that isn't spent one year is saved and is used for either one-time projects or for the stabilization fund. And so that fund was established by the council to have a reserve for emergencies. And then the other thing that we do is a mid-year budget adjustment, and it's a plan for one-time projects that fit the strategic plan. So the council always sees any money that's saved and they appropriate it to one of those 2 ways. They did that because the best practice for reserves is 20 to 30% of the general fund. And in 2010, our reserve was about half, the very minimum of a best practice. And so the city council said we need to save up if we have a good year in case there's bad years coming in the future. They were able to do that. We have been able to do that, and that's reflected through those numbers, through this graph, and through these numbers. And you can see the actual dollar amounts. You see the budget amendments where it's gone to council, and the amounts that we've spent, that we've saved over time, and the amounts that we've spent on flood damage, a nationally or federally declared emergency from last year's flood. And so you see how important it is that we have that amount of money set aside for emergencies. We do anticipate around $2 million more to be spent on remediating the flood from last year. But having the healthy account balance has made that something that we can survive. So the next emergency, we're dealing with 2 of them at once, is the COVID-19 emergency that we'll talk about in the special call council meeting as well. But here's what we know just from the data that we've been able to get so far about the fiscal impact of COVID-19 in our community. Our sales tax is down about 13%. Our use tax is down about 2%. And our hotel motel tax is down 37% for the first month and about 65% for the second month. Those are scary numbers. Those are not fun realities that we're dealing with, but so we've got to work within those realities as we make out this budget. Also, our water revenue is down more than $800,000 year to date. Some of that is, of course, because of just a wet year. The more rain it has, less people need to water their lawns, for instance, or are able to use their pools. But it's also because we've had a downturn economically, and people have not been able to pay their water bills, and we did not have our water cutoffs for quite some time. So those are the realities. As we put this budget together, the council gave us feedback, and the main feedback that we got was basically these three things. It's preserve services to the citizens. That's what they put us here for, is to provide services for tax dollars. Preserving jobs, because a lot of times the services that we provide are the police officer, the fire officer, the person that's the services provided by a human being, and that has that job. And then finally, avoid the layoffs and furloughs that we see so many other cities having. So as we put the budget together, we used that direction and tried to come up with solutions. We knew we were going to have a revenue shortfall. The projection right now is about $1.3 million in the general fund alone, just from sales tax shortfall. So to deal with that, we have tried to cut costs in various ways. But we propose that the best way to preserve services and prevent a loss of services to citizens and to employees is to use some COVID-19 or use some emergency reserves to cover the amount that's in our COVID-19, use the amount covered by that we're going to lose due to COVID-19. So we had the number worked out to about $537,000 that we need to prevent the loss of services to citizens and employees this coming fiscal year. Knowing that we've got a $1.3 million shortfall, we're not asking to use $1.3 million worth of reserves. We're asking to use about $537,000. We're also asking to use the emergency reserves for shortfalls at Swim and Fitness Center and River Country Water Park, who lost revenue due to being closed. If they were private businesses, they would be open. They would be able to get a Paycheck Protection Program or federal assistance. The city's not able to do that. So both of these facilities operate as enterprise funds. They don't usually require a subsidy annually to operate. And this is a way to use one-time funds for a one-time occurrence to keep them solvent and running. So this is the slide that we show every year about this time. We try and always keep, since I've been here, the blue line, which represents revenues, above the red line, which represents expenses. We always want to plan to spend less money than we take in. And so this year, for the first time, we're proposing to do it differently, and we're proposing to spend emergency money because of an emergency. So again, these are the proposed solutions, using emergency reserves only to cover revenue shortfalls and not even to cover 100% of that. But a request to use about $537,787 for the general fund and $110,000 for Swim and Fitness Center and River Country Water Park. So before we get into further specifics of the budget, those were the budget principles, and so I want to pause and make sure that the council is okay with us going forward with incorporating reserves in the budget, even though that's not usually something that we do. All right, councilors, I know you have heard this before, so obviously feel free to ask questions or jump in at any time. That being said, I'm going to proceed with the 2021 draft budget based off of feedback. Again, we want to have expenses less than revenue, with the exception that we're going to use reserves for to cover some of the shortfall of revenue, only some. We're going to have a limited hiring freeze. We're going to cut operational expenses. We're going to budget conservatively. And we're going to keep in mind that budget amendments are good. And what I mean by that is we have a constitutional deadline by the state to establish a state mandate to get a budget done in a certain time frame, and we're going to meet that. But we also have the ability to change our budget through the year. So if revenue comes in different than we expect, we can adjust the budget accordingly. And I do anticipate that this year we'll probably be paying even more attention to that than usual. So in 2-3 months, in August or October or any time, we can look at this budget and say we need to adjust it. We need to make further cuts if revenue is not as good as we thought. We may be able to say, you know what, let's go ahead and look at if we have additional money coming in that we didn't budget, what are we going to do with that money? So those are, or we may be right on track. But regardless, that's what I mean by budget amendments are good. It means we have the option in the future, as things change, to make a different decision about the budget than we make today. Today we're making the decision based off the information we have. If it changes in the future, we can make a different decision. So that being said, we have to make assumptions for general fund, and we decide how much money we think is going to come in, and we're predicting. So this is where we talk about a 10% decrease in sales tax. That's how we get to the $1.3 million shortfall in sales tax revenue. And again, that's in general fund alone. It's partially offset by higher interest earnings, and I do want to just take a small pause here. Council, as you remember, we did an RFP within the last fiscal year to look at our banking services. We asked for and received several proposals. We selected one that has provided us with a guaranteed 1% minimum interest rate that they're paying us. That's resulted in about $200,000 more in interest revenue this year than it did last year. So that's a success. That's part of why we're able to offset some of that $1.3 million. It's boring, but it made a big difference. $200,000 is a lot of money. Other assumptions on our revenue, 2021, we're going to have a use tax increase, but we're budgeting that conservatively. We're not budgeting it to go up as high as it has in the past. We are keeping our water and sewer rates, the increases, and we're going to keep them dedicated to our capital projects, our water and sewer projects to improve our aging infrastructure. And we just made conservative projections on other revenue. So our expense assumptions, we had about $500,000 of increases that we had not a lot of choice in necessarily. We're keeping our employee costs at a minimum, but we're keeping increases at a minimum, but no furloughs, no layoffs proposed. We talked previously about health insurance premiums. They need to go up every year. We got to pay that. We need to pay that as we go. 911 center expenses we expect to be higher. Hatbox Hangar that we have under construction. A new facility that we're going to need to be paying on. Street lights are going to cost us more to operate next year, and our workers' comp claims over the last several years have been coming due in the last year or so. So that is, we had those expense assumptions going up, so we had to deal with all of that. So as we put the budget together, we did try and make sure that the initiatives that the council had given us were in place. And one of the things I'm very proudest of, and I haven't talked enough about it, but I think you guys on the council should take credit for it and be very happy about it, is this budget includes the largest street budget in the history of Muskogee. It's going to be more than $10 million in the next year on our street budget. A large part of that, it will be due to the City Muskogee Foundation and the CIP tax that was passed last year. But we've had to take steps to get to this position, but we are in this position, and I'm excited about that. We have both those CIPs. This is the first full fiscal year that we'll be able to do projects with those. We kept the matching grant fund, which I talked briefly about earlier, which allowed us to acquire that fire truck by using us spending about 10% of the money and a grant spending about 90% of the money. A new fire station for the York Street Fire Station. It's due for replacement. We're budgeting to do that this year, and we're going to continue with our economic development efforts. We'll talk a little bit about that, but here are the numbers. This is what it looks like in the general fund. And you obviously have had a chance to review the budget book. These are the numbers. This is what it all translates to and why we need that $537,000 or so to make up that differential right there. So the summary really, again, is we are well positioned because the council has put us there to have no furloughs, no layoffs, very limited operational cuts. And so with conservative expense management, a use of less than 10% of our reserves, we can keep services to citizens where it's at, keep our employees on the job and working and doing what we hired them to do. And it allows us to have the largest street budget in the history of Muskogee and allows us to hold steady and see what the future holds. Again, that reminds us that we don't have to do anything drastic right now. As we know more about what COVID-19 is going to do to us as a community financially, we can react accordingly, but not make any knee-jerk reactions right now. So, that being said, wanted to pause again for discussion, feedback, and direction from the council for the overall look at the general fund.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be recognized.
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question, Mr. Miller. You know the municipal parking that we have?
Yes.
The municipal parking. Could you explain that to me, please? Where's the money, where it comes from?
So we have what's called the Muskogee Parking Authority.
Right.
That is in your book, I believe, towards the back. 165, the Muskogee Parking Authority. The Muskogee Parking Authority is the board of that parking authority is the council members. So and the money and what it does is manage the parking lots that the city owns. So there's several that we own and charge rent for, and the parking authority takes that rent in and then maintains the lots. So when they need repaving, we're able to do that. And they need restriping, that kind of thing. So the money comes in to the parking authority, and it stays in the parking authority and is only used on the parking lots.
The reason I was asking this was, I was over on 4th Street, the one across from the jail, that new parking lot we done. It's been, what, year ago, 2 years? Been that long? The one right across the street from the jail?
Yes.
And I was looking at how that parking lot, the shape of that parking lot, somebody told me they only done 1 inch of asphalt at that time, which it should have been 2 inches. If you go over there and look at it, it's got nothing but holes in it right now. And I don't know if anybody's reported to get it fixed or what. That's why I was wondering. I thought that was in this, from the parking authority to fix these problems. Mm-hmm. So we probably need to go over there and look at that, when we get time. If you might make a note of that. And also I was curious about, since we had this COVID virus, you got the VA that works, that pays rent for these spots over, in that area, and then over here by the federal building. I'm just curious, we help the people with the water bills, and extended them out, and everything. Why are we still having to charge the VA employees for not parking over there in the parking lots? You think that's fair?
I think they reserve a lot. They pay it by a month. If they don't want to pay, they can give up their reservation.
Well, what I'm saying, sir, we've got the COVID virus.
Mm-hmm.
The virus. They're at home working, but they're still having to pay. Do you think that's fair? Is my question to you.
I think that they're free at any time to not pay.
If they don't pay, y'all won't take it away? Take the parking spots away from them?
The agreement is that they sign up and they use the space or not.
I understand it, Mr. Miller. What I'm saying is, I know they sign up, they use the space, but what I'm saying is, with this virus, they don't need the space right now. It look like we could let them slide without having them to pay when they're at home, is what I'm suggesting. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying, and that it has not come up until you just brought it up now at this public meeting. So that's certainly something that can be discussed.
Okay, because I would really like that discussion to be, because it's no sense. That's one of our largest employers here in Muskogee. There's no sense in them having to pay, and they're at home for that spot. That still should be their spot, but they shouldn't have to pay. We should give the VA a break too. They have families, just like we did the people with the water bill. We gave them breaks, correct? That's all I'm asking.
My understanding is that we ask all the people to pay their water bill, but if they couldn't, we didn't cut them off.
Right.
And so I'm not sure what you're proposing for the, and hopefully, Lord willing, no one at the VA lost their job during this time. I am very hopeful of that.
No, they didn't lose their job, but
Good.
my point is that they're at home, but they're still having to pay for using that parking lot that's empty over there that they're not bringing their vehicles to from home to use it. I look like we could, as a city, help them out, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
You know, we're not, I can understand, you know, time I brought about the water bill, you know, we got to have the revenue, but that's just all I'm saying is just give our largest employer a break, too, also, in this virus situation. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I take direction from the council, obviously, and the parking authority, when they meet, can address that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Miller. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a few more things on the general fund. We've got the Civic Center. We've talked some about this. Used to be operated by a third party. Since we took it over, we've maintained this flat budget of about $300,000 from the general fund and about $50,000 for events. It's a savings of about $115,000 a year, and I do feel like we're operating it just as well or better than that third party. Love Hatbox Sports the same way. We're saving more than $200,000 a year over when a third party operated it. Economic development, this primarily comes through to us from use tax, which is online sales tax primarily, but also personal property tax on some purchases. But primarily these days, this mainly comes through as our online sales tax. You see the entities that are involved in making up this budget. The port is taking a decrease in their funding request. They're going to try and use some carryover from this year, knowing it's a lean year for everyone. Main Street Muskogee submitted a request for $0 this year. They're retooling the downtown organization, and we want to be a partner with them. They may come back next year for a funding request. Civic Center events, we just talked about that. The two big things are our debt service, which is primarily the economic development projects we already have underway at the urban renewal area and Three Corners. And then we have the restricted economic development account, which is $480,000. This is 40% of the use tax, which is what the ordinance originally proposed, and it's a goal that the council has set in the past for us to put that money into the restricted account, and we're able to meet that goal this year. The next budget we want to look at briefly is the Muskogee Municipal Authority. This is where our water and sewer revenue comes in. So this is basically a fee for a service that we provide. We're budgeting this year about $2.1 million in money to come in. Three things that we're going to focus on. Two $250,000 contracts, one for water and one for sewer, so that if something comes up, we can get to it quickly. Rather than sometimes we have a big job that comes up, and if it's over $25,000, it turns into a 60 to 90 day process just to get it done, because we've got to bid it out. If we bid it out ahead of time, we can get somebody on it. We still follow the bid process, but we can get somebody on the job quick and help our citizens faster, still spend the same amount of money and still follow the bid process. Additional funding for street cuts to help us keep up and make progress on our water leaks. We have dedicated sales tax. We talked about all our sales taxes are proposed, look to be down about 10%. Fire and police both have a dedicated tax. Fire is going to use theirs for design and construction on a new Station 5 and debt service possibly in the future for that, and the police vehicles as well that we mentioned this year. Solid Waste Fund, another separate fund established by the council. we're going to, you guys approved the purchase of new automated vehicles this year. We will, those will arrive next fiscal year, and that's going to allow for two other good things in the budget. One is an employee reclassification to better compensate the employees for the jobs that they're doing. Two, we anticipate it will lower our workers' comp claims because.
I got a question right there.
Yes, sir. Yes,
with the new vehicles coming in, are we going to lose any people there in that department?
We will lose positions, but we've already made it clear that we're not going to lose people. If they need to transfer to a different division and not work in solid waste, then we'll have another job for them.
Thank you.
Over time, with attrition, we may lose positions over time, but individual people that work here now will keep everyone will keep their job. Capital outlay. We have, as usual, a whole lot of requests. This is a dedicated sales tax voted on by the people of Muskogee. We had projected about $1.1 million worth of money to come into that fund. It has equipment for the street department. You see the list there: fuel system, new mowers, capital money for the Roxy, proactive facilities budget, and two things that we have not done in the past, but I want to just highlight a little bit here. Money for the senior center on Okmulgee, and for the Hall of Fame parking lot at the Depot District. As we're finishing up that project, it makes sense that we pave the parking lot. We've tried a lot of different ways, a lot of different times to pave the Hall of Fame parking lot, but it makes sense to just try and do that in conjunction with the project that's coming through and finishing there at the Depot Green. So those are the proposed expenditures in capital outlay. Hotel motel tax, I alluded to that earlier. It is a tricky one, and we've talked some about it, and we talked extensively about it at the council retreat. What we can see is that we had close to $1 million worth of expenses last year that we're trying to cram into projected revenues of about $360,000 to $375,000 this year. The direction that we got from the council at the council retreat is reflected on this next slide, which is to make drastic reductions to a couple of the areas, which is city-funded projects through the Hatbox Enterprise and the new arena program, and a significant cut to the tourism-related contract, going from $600,000 to $150,000. The tourism venues that we support, we kept whole. The Roxy, we moved to the general fund because it was easier to try and absorb that money there than in this very, very tight budget this year. But the other Three Rivers Museum, War Memorial Park, the Hall of Fame, those we do understand if we are going to have tourism venues to promote tourism, we need to help keep them afloat even during tough times. So those were proposed to stay roughly the same. There has been some discussion related to the tourism contract and related to the proposed management fee. And so I'd like to open all of that up for discussion now for the council at this time.
Do we have any comments or concerns about the future of the tourism contract from anyone online or either councilors in the
This is Counselor Stout. I know we have discussed, and I know with there's some concerns with the proposed contract from the current tourism contract, where it's with the chamber. With some of the changes that they're made, where there's not going to be hardly any new money to actually go to community events. It's all going to go to their contract fees and into the different salaries that it covers there. And I just think that we need to make sure that our money's going into promoting Muskogee and not funding contract fees and other things.
This is a public hearing, and Justin and Angela are here if you guys would like to comment in on this section as well. Okay. Anyone else online or in the chamber as well?
Mr. Chairman, this is Councilman Coleman. I have a question, and it probably may be for Mr. Miller. Have we had any further comments from the leadership of the tourism board in terms of how we should structure going forward with limited funds?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilor Coleman. There was a meeting late last week or middle of last week. It all started to run together at this point. But, with the chairman of the tourism board and the vice chairman, who is Alex Reynolds, Councilor Reynolds, who has let us know that he's not going to be able to be here tonight due to unforeseen circumstances. I did want, so their feedback to me was similar to what Councilor Stout's feedback was to the group, which is the proposal was to basically to change the management fee from a percentage to a dollar amount, and that the dollar amount was such that they would be uncomfortable supporting it. And so what the talk and the discussion then amongst some people was, well, perhaps if that's the case, they indicated that they would like the city to look at what could be done to possibly conduct the tourism activities in-house versus through a contract, knowing that at such time as tourism revenues and tourism activity step back up, which we all hope happens soon, that the world resumes a very travel-friendly place, but we know we're not there. That if that were to happen in the future, that again it could be contracted out at a future date if that were the case. They pointed to the successes that we had with some taking back some contracts and operating programs in-house, and wondered if we should experiment with that. So that's been a proposal that's been floated, but we don't really, we need direction from the council certainly as to the direction that you guys want to go.
That was a recommendation from tourism.
So let me be clear, the tourism board has not met. They do have a meeting set, I believe, for next Wednesday, the 10th, a special call meeting. That was feedback from the chair and the vice chair of that committee, but they were, I do want to be clear, that was just Councilor Reynolds acting as vice chair and Chairman Avery Fricks. That was the feedback that they gave to me. Yeah.
So, Mr. Miller, this is Councilman Coleman again. Should we wait until they make a formal recommendation before we proceed to make our own? Because my concern is I don't want to get ahead of them if they're going to actually make a formal recommendation in terms of how we should move forward.
I understand, and so there's been this is a new process we put in place last year with the MRA and the MRA Tourism Board and the council and staff all interacting. So there's a bit of a chicken and egg sort of situation, and so the council allocates through the budget process money to the MRA for tourism contract. So that's what we're discussing tonight. If you guys don't allocate money to the MRA for a tourism contract, there is not one. If you do allocate money to the MRA for a tourism contract, then that becomes a recommendation on how they administer the contract. And then that contract, of course, comes back here to the MRA, not the City Council, for approval. So it's a complicated process. I think, long story short, Councilor Coleman, I think it could go either way. I think if the council said, I want to hear what the MRA Tourism Board has to say, that's an option. If you have a direction that you want to go today, I believe that's an option.
I don't know how my peers feel. I'm not poised to make any firm recommendation or determinations today until I hear from the board itself. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask, did we have a motion, or are we gonna hold off on this piece as far as, so we can know how to proceed from council? Are we gonna hold off until after, what was that date again?
Wednesday, the 8th, 1 week from Wednesday. No, the 10th. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
It's the 10th.
I mean,
Pardon me. It's I believe it's the 10th. Forgive me.
I'm more inclined to wait until we hear from the tourism board before we make a firm decision on that item.
I guess with that, Mike, you wanna go ahead and move forward?
Yeah, if there's no other feedback, we'll be happy to do that. What that will do is we may postpone the vote on the MRA budget to not do that next Monday, or we may we'll have to figure that out. But we've got a week to do that. So yeah, if there's no other direction, then we can wait. There's also a possibility that that group can meet on an earlier basis as a special call if needed, but that's up to them and the chair.
On your timeline, what was the timeline date that we were trying to shoot as far as to approve this budget?
So the timeline we've discussed with the council at the retreat was the budget hearing today, and then feedback, and based off the feedback, we may be able to approve it next Monday. But that's the whole purpose of these meetings, is for you guys to give us feedback on that timeline and what needs to be done before it's ready for approval by this body. Mr. Chair, are you ready for me to move on?
I guess we're clear. Are we okay as far as, once again, are we okay just to move forward with the budget discussion and come back to the tourism after the Wednesday meeting of the board? And that date is not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, correct?
That's correct, and I don't want to speak for anyone else, but there may be a possibility to have that meeting sooner as a special call.
Guess they're quiet, Mike. You can go ahead and move forward.
I do want to say one other thing. The public hearings that are required were published in the paper, so we will still have to have the second public hearing with council in accordance with that published deadline, which I think was Monday. But that's different than adopting the budget. So we will hear this. You'll have another public hearing, but you won't formally adopt the budget until sometime later. It just has to be done before June 23rd. But the last meeting that we have is the 22nd. So that would be our statutory deadline.
Yeah. Right, and we do have different budgets that we're talking about, the MRA budget versus the city budget. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your feedback. Here's just a few other funds. Your book is nearly 200 pages long with a lot of detail in it. But I want to just talk briefly about these funds: Swim and Fitness and River Country Water Park, Park Development Fund, and Airport. A lot of these activities that at other cities, almost every other city you go to, has some kind of annual subsidy to make these things happen. And we don't, and that's a tribute to the people that run these organizations, that on an annual basis we're able to keep these things going without having the general fund having to subsidize them on an annual basis. So I'm proud of those, of that activity that we're able to do. So again, as we get to the close, we got our strategic initiative, we got our largest street budget in Muskogee's history. Something to be proud of, especially in a year where we have so many challenges. We got more money for water and sewer infrastructure. We're going to minimize the employee impact and the public impact. And that's something that we wouldn't be able to do if we hadn't been put in that situation by the council wisely planning ahead. And we're minimizing the use of reserves, again, using less than 10% of the reserves to even during a state of emergency. That being said, the whole purpose we're here is for discussion and direction. We've listened to you as we put together what we have so far, and we will be happy to bring this back again on the 8th, on Monday, for further discussion and possible adoption as the city budget, pending direction from this group.
All right. Where do I close the public hearing now? Okay. We will, after the report, close the public hearing. And is there any other further discussion from the council at this point? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4.
Consider approval of the reappointment of
So,
Chad Whittle.
pardon me, Mr. Chair. If I may, and maybe forgive me if I'm out of order, but I would appreciate if the council has given a way to show council direction, if you guys would vote to approve the draft that we've submitted, even though this is council, even though this is a committee, just to give me clear direction of what needs to take place.
Okay.
It's fine to do that. Apparently all the batteries went out at the same time. Mr. Chairman, it's fine to handle it that way. When we adopt the actual budget, it will be adopted by resolution. Mm-hmm. And so making a motion to approve the draft budget that was presented has no other effect than to give direction to staff. So it's fine if that's the will of the body.
All right. So, once again, what we're looking at for those who may be joining us for the first time on this budget, the draft before us, is there anything that needs to be added or taken away before we have another presentation on next Monday night? Now is the opportunity to point those things out. If not, the draft that we have before us will be what will be presented on next week. So if there's anyone that has anything that was discussed at budget retreat as well as, with tonight's presentation, now is that opportunity. And if not...
Mr. Chair, this is Councilman Coleman. I have a question for Mr. Tucker and for Mr. Miller. Last year, as I recall, we went through the hearings without approving a draft budget. Is there any reason why we need to depart from that procedure?
No, my recollection was different, but I don't think it much matters. I listen, and my impression was the opposite, and I don't have anything going except my memory, and I don't remember everything from a year ago perfectly. So I'm not asking to vary from past practice. My understanding was past practice was to approve. But there's no particular need. It just provides me more clear direction of how we're doing to move forward. That was the sole reason for my request was, number one, I thought that was past practice, and number two, for clarity of direction.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm raring to go now. My recollection of the process was the same as Councilor Coleman's, but I think what the city manager is looking for is action on direction, not necessarily approving the budget. Now that I'm hearing him,
yeah, correct. I'm not asking for the budget to be adopted. That can't happen today, right. And I'm not under the impression that it would be. I'm not asking that it would be.
So the motion would be moving forward as presented, or to announce any other direction from the council that needs to be given to the manager.
I don't think we have any other direction at this time, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Miller. I think, I think the hearing was fine. I think the information that was presented was fine. I think we'll probably have more direction after we clarify some of the other items pertaining to tourism. I don't know if anybody's ready to actually clarify those tonight.
Okay. That's fine with me. Pardon me, Mr. Chair, for interrupting.
No problem. Was that the pleasure to move on without once again without a motion to approve the draft only? If no further discussion, Mike, I guess we'll just see you next week on this item.
Very good.
If I'm understanding correctly. Is that correct, Roy?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So next week we will have another budget hearing, and I'm sure Mike is open to any feedback. You can contact him personally. So once again, with no other information on our budget, we'll move on to item number 4 now.
Consider approval of the reappointment of Ched Wetz to the Muskogee Medical Center Authority to serve a 7-year term beginning June 1, 2020 and ending May 30, 2027, or take other necessary action.
Mayor Borston?
Yes, I'm making this appointment of Mr. West. He has been filling an unexpired term, and I would like to reappoint him to the Muskogee Medical Center Authority to serve a 7-year term beginning June 1, 2020. That's my motion.
Councilor Hibbs, I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee,
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan,
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and thank you.
All right, item number 4 passes. Item number 5, please.
Consider approval to apply for PPE grant from Homeland Security / FEMA in the amount of $19,316.82 for preventative measures regarding the COVID-19 pandemic or take other necessary action.
Chief Jones?
Yes, Chairman and committee, I am here to request your approval for another grant. FEMA and Homeland Security recently made available another grant for fire departments across the United States to purchase PPEs to help combat the COVID-19 pandemic. We are asking FEMA for $19,316.82 to purchase N95 masks, gloves, respirators, gowns, etc. We recommend your approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any questions or either a motion on this item?
This Councilman Ivory Van, I make a motion to approve.
Councilman McGee, second.
Councilor Morgan, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 5 passes. Item number 6, please.
Consider approval of the recommended bids for chemicals used for water treatment as follows. 1, chlorine at .4375 cents per pound to Brentag Southwest. 2, fluorosilicic acid at .18 cents per pound to Univar USA. 3, polyphosphate at .36 cents per pound to Hawkins Incorporated. 4, alum/polymer coagulate at .255 cents per pound to DNF Services. 5, sodium chloride at .472 cents per pound to International Dioxide Incorporated. 6, ferric chloride at .143 cents per pound to WaterTech Incorporated. 7, caustic soda at .1738 cents per pound to Univar USA, or take other necessary action.
Do we have Mr. Riley on the line?
Yes, yes, I'm on the line. This is, I'm going to have Stephen Martin, our Assistant Public Works Director, handle this item for you.
Thank you. This item was previously approved in Purchasing Committee, and this is the yearly bids for our chemicals for the water treatment plant. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
We have any questions for Mr. Riley and his team, or do we have a motion at this time?
Mayor Boydston moves the approval.
We have a second out there?
Council.
We have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item. Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Item number 6 passes, and with that passing, it is our final item for our Finance Committee.
All right, then now we will call to order the special call meeting of the Muskogee City Council of June 1st, 2020. Roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Alex Reynolds. Stephanie Morgan.
Here.
Tracy McGee.
Here.
Motion carries. The consent agenda is item 1 through item 4. Does anyone want to ask for anything to be moved to the regular agenda?
I move for approval.
Of the consent agenda.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Councilman Morgan, second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 5.
Receive report on the COVID-19 pandemic in Muskogee, and if necessary, take appropriate action to authorize and approve a subsequent amendment to Resolution Number 2801, declaring a local emergency, or City-County Joint Resolution Number 2803.
Before we go any further, I would like to tell you that the City-County COVID committee met this past Friday, and but we had discussion, and we were going to just go ahead and follow the governor's phase 3 methods, and I'd like to say that we've been doing pretty well here in Muskogee, and we need to keep it up. And then I will ask Mr. Miller to report on this.
Thank you, Mayor Boydston. I appreciate that. We anticipate a relatively brief report from staff before we have council discussion on where we're at and where we need to head. We'll ask our emergency manager, Tyler Evans, to come forward and give us a briefing and a status update.
Good afternoon, Ms. Mayor, members of council. I'm sure most of you know that the state of Oklahoma has entered phase 3 of its reopening plan today. Some of the changes that it allows for is visitation to hospitals within certain guidelines provided for in the reopening plan. Visitation is also dependent on that particular hospital. They ultimately have the decision on whether to open back up or not based on the impact that COVID-19 has in their particular community. Visitation to senior care facilities, except for end-of-life situations, will still be prohibited until lifted by executive order. Summer camps for church and school can open. Businesses can resume unrestricted staffing at their work sites by observing proper CDC-recommended social distancing protocols. Businesses operating by appointment only right now may begin operating by appointment and walk-in at their discretion. Last week, the Muskogee County Health Department tested 87 with 1 new positive case from that testing. The city of Muskogee did have a senior living community that did have 6 positive cases within that facility. All 6 of those cases have been transferred out to either a 24/7 care facility or a hospital. And the facility was cleaned and sanitized by a professional cleaning company that came in and cleaned that facility. As of this morning, there are 48 positive cases in Muskogee County and 6 deaths. As of last Friday, the number of positive cases that have occurred in the city of Muskogee was 27, with 4 of those being deaths. Due to the expiration of the state's emergency declaration, which expired on Saturday, it has limited some of the information that we've been getting from the state and the state health department. For example, we're no longer able to see how many positive cases are within the city, but just by the county. It's listed by county. It used to be broken down by city and zip code on the coronavirus website. It's no longer broken down to the city and zip code level, just the county. The health department is no longer able to send us a positive case information for our first responders. However, on last Friday, there were only 3 active COVID-19 cases within the city limits of Muskogee. And that does not count the cases from the senior care facility that we talked about. Last week, the Oklahoma State Department of Health surpassed its goal to collect and test more than 90,000 specimens in the month of May. As of last Friday, the State Department of Health had processed a total of 188,665 tests since COVID-19 was first detected in early March. As of last Thursday, just 3.77% of the 188,000 tests have come back positive. Since phase 2 of the reopening plan, which was started on May 15th, if you remember, 69,914 tests were performed and just 2.1% were positive. So the difference between phase 2 and phase 3, we went from May 15th to June 1st to phase 3. It resulted in a 1.67% increase in positive cases, so just over a 1.5 percentage. For the state of Oklahoma, there have been 6,573 positive cases, and with 5,511 recoveries and 334 deaths. The median age of death currently is 76 and a half years of age. The median age of positive cases is 47 years of age. We continue to have daily correspondence with our friends from the Muskogee County Health Department, Muskogee County Government, and EMS, and we're closely monitoring the numbers. Are there any questions for me? Okay, if not, I'd like to turn the floor back over to Mr. Miller.
So that's our staff report. I do understand that council members may want to have discussion about our emergency declaration that we have in place, and or the county joint resolution.
This is Councilman Ivory Van. Last council meeting, I missed my turn on this because I guess, well, I was paying attention, but I didn't see it wrote on the paper. And I wanted the council, when they took a vote because I wanted to go back to this subject here, but it was a 6-3 vote up here for me not to talk. So I'll bring it up today. Since the council didn't, I'm saying this out of love, council, since y'all didn't allow me the courtesy to go back to the item. So I had Roy draw up a draft for me, which I know now that I appreciate you, Roy, for drawing that draft up. And my thing was, I still think, I don't care what the governor says, I think it's still too early, that we already opened up. We have our children that's going to get ready to play baseball. We have people eating in the restaurants and all of these things that seem normal. But COVID-19 is still alive and well here in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And that I know for a fact. Anytime you can't go by and test every nursing home and let me know that all the people in that nursing home are safe, I understand it's still here. That's just my thought. And so I was going to bring this to the council tonight, so I'm not even going to bother to try to get them to vote on not reopening, because everything is open. They're over out in town, all the splash pads going, swimming pools going. Everything is going, just like I say, like it's normal. But I don't think about me. I know it's not a cure to it yet. It's not. It's here. If we have a big breakout, I don't think Muskogee can handle it. But I'm not going to fight against a fight. And I was told by some reliable people before I came up here tonight, I didn't come up here to nag about it. I just want you to be aware that I'm saying no, because in case it does break out more, I don't want nobody to say that I did say yes to get everything open. I'm a strict no on that. But like I say, I'm just one vote up here. So I'm not trying to start anything. I'm just saying it out of love, council. I just want you to know, and the mayor, just saying this out of love. But like I say, I just hope and pray, and let's all pray that nothing happens to the rest of our citizens here in Muskogee, and I hope the COVID-19 is over here. That's just my prayer, and I hope that's everybody else's prayer. So Roy, again, I thank you for drawing this up for me, and I appreciate you. But like I said, I just wanted to make that point. Ivory Van says no to reopening everything, because everything sounds good. We out having fun, and you got all these kids in the water in the pool, and there's no way you can stay 6 foot apart from each other. It's not possible. And that's just the way it is. When I went to around the splash pad today, seeing those kids just playing away, close as they could to each other. Say the water don't hurt him. But as long as it's out here, and it's here in Muskogee, and like I say, that's the last thing I'm going to say, we still need to be testing these nursing homes. Another thing was, it surprised us this week, I believe it was this week, when the county had somebody up there had it. Anybody in this room right now that hadn't been tested, we still got these masks on to protect each other. If we hadn't been tested, I could have it. Y'all could have it. But I want to say another thing, and please, I'm serious. Please don't take an offense to this, because I'm saying this out of strict love. Everybody that's at home on this city council, y'all, you open it back up, come back to council. We got 6 foot distance up here. You don't have to be at home tonight. You can be right up here with us. So if you feel it's not threatening to our citizens here in Muskogee, show an example and come on back up here to council. And that's all I say. So when I'm saying that out of love, I don't say that out of hatred, because I know how some people think if I just mumble a word up here, I'm being hateful or mean. I'm just saying it out of love. So I hope the council and the mayor also, I hope y'all take that out of love. And I will turn the floor back over to you, Miss Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it the mayor or the? Okay. Y'all turn the floor back over to you, Miss Mayor.
Turn it over to Mr. Miller.
Turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Miller.
Mayor, the staff has nothing further on this topic.
Okay, then as I understand it, there's no need to take any action. Is that right, Mr. Tucker?
Based on the discussion, I believe that is correct, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go to item 6.
Consider approval of resolution number 2812, declaring items of personal property presently in the possession of the City of Muskogee to be surplus to the needs of the City of Muskogee, and authorize the city manager to offer for sale or dispose of the same, all as per the attached list, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, this is the same resolution that we approved in committee the last time we met. We did have a resolution number change, and that is the only difference. Staff does recommend approval.
Councilor Stout moves for approval.
Councilor
Morgan, second. All right. Any discussion? Roll call.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 7.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss ongoing litigations, Dodd Elias Quintana, DBA Fort Gibson Investments v. City of Muskogee, filed in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Oklahoma, 19-CV-066-RAW, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session, including the appointment of a fully authorized settlement representative.
All right. Mr. Tucker?
Mayor, at this time, I think we'd request that a motion to convene an executive session be made.
Go to it. Would someone make a motion for executive session?
This is Councilor Stout. I second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Please excuse us while we go into executive session.
Mayor, I think we're back on.
Okay, well then let's please ask for the roll call.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed. Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Here.
Alex Reynolds, Stephanie Morgan,
Here.
Tracy McGee.
Here.
We have a quorum. Mr. Tucker, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 7A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the ongoing litigation styled Quintana versus City of Muskogee et al., filed in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Oklahoma. After being briefed on the status of that case, it is necessary, according to the court's order, to appoint a fully authorized settlement representative in this case to appear at a settlement conference on July 1st. With that, I think an appropriate motion would be, based on the discussion, to approve the appointment of Counselor Stephanie Morgan to serve as a fully authorized settlement representative in the above referenced case.
Thank you. Do we have that motion?
This is Councilman Ivory Van. I make a motion for Stephanie Morgan to represent us on that settlement case.
Councilman
All
McGee,
right.
second.
Is there a second? Do
Councilman
we
McGee,
have a second?
Councilman McGee, second.
Okay. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Tracy McGee,
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan,
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed,
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. And that concludes our agenda for tonight. So we will adjourn. Good night.